Here we go. Hi, everyone. It's Jude and John, and we have my original mentor and John's best friend, or closest friend. I guess grown-ups don't have best friends, do they?
We don't do besties, no.
Well,
at least
John's
guys don't.
oldest and dearest friend, Chris Johnson, who's an internationally acclaimed author and speaker.
That's right.
And
And he's also the one that introduced the two of us,
he did.
right?
Yeah, and he was best man at our wedding.
Yeah, we got a lot of ties here, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just love him, and we wanted to share his expertise with you tonight.
When it comes to us and our health, there's nobody else we go to, right?
No.
There's nobody we trust more, and we talk. I don't care if it's a doctor, whoever it is, we start here because we believe Chris has the answers for us, and that there's a natural way to do it, and that our bodies can heal themselves, and that we want to take care of ourselves, and so we get all our advice right here. It starts and ends right here, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Hey, can I back up for a second?
Yes.
So I'm just going to talk about how you guys met real quickly, but John comes to me one day and says, "Who's your new intern?" And I said, "It's Judy." And he goes, I said, "Why? Are you interested?" And he says, "I am." But that's how it all began.
But he didn't know I had 3 kids, did he?
He did not. But you know what? Soon that didn't matter.
No.
Yeah, I didn't find out until we were 4 years married that she was
But that was a gift, right? That was a gift.
It was a gift.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Darn right. I mean, you look at it now with
3 kids and then we go to
And then
7 grandchildren.
You got 7 grandkids. It's a gift.
It's the best thing in the whole
It's all
world.
gravy.
It's all
But I
gravy
just
from
remember
here on
that
out.
day
That's
John
right.
stopped by and he goes, "Let me ask you, who is that?" I go, "That's my new intern."
It's funny. That was forever ago.
Yeah, it just seemed like it, doesn't it?
Right. And so then how long did you intern for?
A long time.
Yeah, then you hired on as one of our trainers.
Then I
Yeah.
started speaking because
And
you
you started
spoke.
speaking. Yeah.
And then I ended up getting a job with the same title as you at another gym, Director of Personal Training.
Yeah. You were.
It's because it's the law of honor. It connects you to the gifts on the person. So all those same gifts fell on me. I didn't ask for them. It just happened. And that's what happens when you connect to a mentor. And Chris mentors people, and John mentors people, and I mentor people. And we've seen it happen over and over again, that the good things that God has bestowed on us get bestowed on them. The honorable ones, the ones who are properly connected. And so that's why we're here tonight, to have Chris mentor you a little and to get to know him and what he does. And we're just really proud of him because he used to work at Frito-Lay and giving people Little Debbies, and I'm sure eating his share of them.
Oh yeah, I had a bunch of good jobs: butternut bread, Frito-Lay. So yeah.
He went from that to being the gold standard in health.
He was a pusher. He pushed the Funyuns. He pushed the
Doritos,
the
Ruffles,
Doritos. Yeah, he was a pusher.
Munches and Funs. You got questions? I'm your guy.
And
Anyway.
then he became born again, right? And he started all over again. So
Will you tell us how you got your start?
Well, as John knows, John and I went to high school together, and I was a business economics major at Western Michigan. And like most people, you know, the way to get a living, you needed to have a business degree, and that's kind of how I was guided, and I had no clue what I was doing. But when I got out of school in, early 1980, there wasn't a lot of jobs, and so I went to work for Butternut Bread. I worked in the assembly line. My brother went to GM.
With a degree?
So yeah,
That stinks.
yeah, I needed to make some cash. I was living at home, and everybody said, "Why don't you go into management at General Motors?" Which I could have, but I thought, that's not what I want to do. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I went.
But you knew what you didn't want to do.
I knew I didn't want to go into General Motors, and again, nothing wrong with that.
Well, that can be a trap
Yeah.
because the good pay and the good benefits,
Yeah.
and then you get.
Yeah, and you could
Yeah.
ride that cycle. And then I went to work for Butternut Bread, and then went to work for Frito-Lay. One of John and I's best friends, Rick Norris, was at Frito-Lay in management, so I got a job there, which was much better than Butternut Bread. But then from there, I learned real quickly that I didn't really want to go into management at Frito-Lay. I wanted to go do something else, and I went to grad school. So I went back to school and went in exercise physiology, and I was thinking about sports medicine or physical therapy, but I had an amazing mentor,
Yeah.
Dr. Kwok Ho, and I met with him, and I wasn't even in school at Michigan State University, and I had a meeting with him, and I spent over 2.5 hours with him, and he asked all the right questions.
Wow. So he became your mentor.
Yes, and he said, you're a prevention guy, you need to go on prevention. This was in 1983.
See that? Your mentor, everyone who's successful, they all point to somebody who helped them get there. So if you're struggling, you need to find a mentor.
Well, when you started, you did a tour of them. So you went to work at. I'm jumping in front.
Yeah, so I worked at a hospital, and then I went to work for a private practice physician, Barry Saltman out in Mason. You've been out there.
So you went into private practice. Was it a heart doctor?
No, so I worked at a large hospital-based wellness center. I did stress testing in a hospital in Grand Rapids.
Okay.
And then from there, I was recruited, believe it or not, by this Dr. Barry Saltman, and he was a private practice physician in Mason, and he worked with a lot of high-risk people.
Yeah.
And so at the time, I was an exercise specialist, I was certified in this and that, and so we developed a fitness facility in Mason, and then I had all these high-risk people. I had a heart replacement, COPD, diabetes, blood pressure, you name it, and that was my kind of like under fire. I got all these high-risk people, and I started learning very quickly what we need to do with them. And then, a couple years into that, the Michigan Athletic Club opened up, which was one of the largest health clubs in the world. And I thought this would be an amazing opportunity. So I went from a big fish in a tiny pond to a really big pond as a tiny fish.
But then you ended up being a big fish.
Well, but then that's where I learned. I learned from people. I learned from members. I learned, and then I started speaking, and one thing led to another. And I kind of liked speaking. I had no idea what I was doing, but I liked it. And then people started asking me, "Can you come and do that at my company?" And so, many years I was at the MAC for 18 years, and lots of training and things like that. I mean, I've done over 25,000 hours of training. So you spend a lot of time in front of people. You kind of get behavior and what they're doing and what drives them, and see all the different things. And so I started speaking, and then as time went on, I really liked it, and I thought maybe I should do this. And so I came to Paula, and I started.
But now you're married and you've got children.
Oh, when I went to grad school, I was married and had children.
So that was a risk that you took to quit your job and go back to school.
Oh yeah, everybody said, "What are you doing? You're going into exercise physiology." This is in 1984. Like, what is that? Nobody knows it. You can make a living. But I remember I had another mentor, this guy named Barry Franklin down in Detroit, and he says, if you can get good at what you're doing, you'll probably be able to make a living at it. And
Was it your passion?
Oh gosh, yeah. I love lifting weights. I liked working out. I got into bodybuilding. I just was fascinated by the body. And so, like, when I went into grad school, I was taking biochemistry, and I thought, God, this is so much fun, and everybody hated it.
Yeah.
But I loved it. And then I loved physiology, and I loved anatomy, and I loved everything about it. So it was like reading, a magazine. I like, okay, this is fun to read. And then my grades were really good because I loved doing it. But then I realized very quickly I found what I really wanted to do. And
You found your destiny.
I found my passion and
Your purpose.
And then as time went on, fast forward, in 2007, I decided to go out on my own.
You took another risk.
Yeah, came back to Paula and been married to Paula. I'm going to be 41 years, and I said to her, I'm quitting my pretty good paying job, and I'm going to go out. And she said, "Are you sure?" And I
She's
said,
a good wife.
She's great. And I said, I have no idea, honey. All I do is I really think I want to continue this in a different realm. So yeah, I completely took a huge risk.
That's a big risk. To leave a lucrative job where you're the head honcho.
Well, it's not just that. You have a lot of people that are chirping in your ear saying, you can't make a living as a personal trainer.
Yeah.
But slowly but surely, you tackled that one and you became very successful at it. And then you said, I'm going to write books and I'm going to go out and speak. And people chirping your ear going, you can't make a living by writing books and going out and speaking.
On health.
But you continue to follow what your passion is.
Yeah, I just kept, Jim Collins' 3 circles, what are you passionate about? Can you drive your economic engine? Can you make a living at it? And then can you be best in class? And I always use that 3 circles because a lot of people like you and I have a passion for golf.
Right.
Can we make a living at it? No.
Are you best in class?
No. So that's called a hobby. That's a hobby. So
it's a good one.
But at the same time, I started looking at what are the major problems we're seeing in our world today, and a big part of that is our health is moving sideways. So if that's the problem, what if you had a solution to that? And that's what I kept always thinking, like in organizations, they're like, oh, well, we'll get to that when we have time, but your people are your greatest asset, and the greatest asset of your people is their health. So I kept always thinking that in the back of my mind, that we're helping people solve a problem, and it's a major problem.
So we probably should have started off too with the fact that, so Chris's business is called On Target Living. They've got a wonderful website. You can go to it, On Target Living.
Yeah.
They've got all kinds of things you can do, and we'll talk about them. But so it started with that simple beginnings, and we are in your facility today. It's at 7,000.
beautiful.
How many square feet are we?
It's about 5,000.
5,000 square
Beautiful
feet building, where it has workout, it has a training center, it has a kitchen where you can cook. So it's a beautiful
But
facility.
not just a kitchen, a state-of-the-art kitchen.
Right, right. Where they teach classes and that. So he's turned his passion into a full-time business and then some. You sell a lot of different products, a lot of health products, all with the On Target label.
And he's a celebrated author, and this is his latest book. It's called Rest, Eat, Move. It's awesome.
How many books? 4, 5?
That's number 6.
That's number 6.
6 books.
That's my life's work, though, right there. That's it. So somebody
That's
asked
your
me,
legacy?
yeah. Somebody asked me the other day, "Are you going to write another book?" I go, "I just got done writing that book. It took me 2.5 years. I'm taking a break for a while." So who knows? But yeah, all this stuff's in there.
That's funny. God asked me in June to write a book, and I just finished it today, and I thought it took so long.
And?
But it's not very technical. His is technical.
Well, it's just, again, those are all steps. I think that's the big thing.
Yeah.
You're talking to people about, back to what you said earlier. A lot of people in your world will always tell you what you can't do.
That's right.
And if you really start believing in your passion and what's driving you, I was always driven by this because I loved it. I wasn't having to be extrinsically motivated. I was intrinsically motivated. So there's a lot to be said about that. And I think in our world today, everybody's, John knows I've had a lot of really crummy jobs.
Right.
Working on the assembly line,
Right.
Working at butternut bread, the list goes on. But,
So
then,
can you give us an example of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation?
Well, again, sometimes you'll be watching this tonight. That would be more of a extrinsic motivation outside. But anytime you get driven internally, when you're motivated to do whatever, and when nobody's watching, that's intrinsically motivated. And that's the key I'm always getting to people. Like, I can give you a diet, I can help you with a workout, I can do all that, but we got to find what you enjoy doing. So you're doing it when nobody's paying attention. And that's the key. Like, for either one of you, if they said, "Hey, John, you need to work out," or "Judy, you need to work out," that's not even an issue. You enjoy it, you like, So that's the driver. And when you get people to slowly move into intrinsically motivated, you got them, because now they're doing it because they want to. That's what I love about, as adults. We talk a lot about, in my book I have a chapter on play, and why play is so important as we age is because when you see adults play, you can hear them laughing, you can see they're in the now. And our world today is so much into the fear of the future or the past, whatever. And so that's really where intrinsically motivation comes along. Yeah. It's a powerful tool, but people need to tap into it, and they need to tap into a lot of things. Like, I listen to podcasts, that might be extrinsically motivating. And we need to go to a seminar, or you go to listen to a motivational whatever. You go to church, or you hear the pastor or whatever. That's all fantastic. We all need that. And then you need to surround yourself with support systems. And support systems is a big deal to keep the momentum going.
You can't have somebody saying, "Don't work out today," or "You just worked out yesterday, I don't want you to leave." You need someone to undergird you, right?
Yeah, you need, and you need to have people around you. Like we talk about, your circle, your 5 people that you hang out the most with. It's going to lift you up or take you down. So that's important. Those are all important support systems to keep you, to where you want to go.
When you talk about this book and all that, everybody seems to always look for a silver bullet, don't they? Mm-hmm. Everybody wants a silver bullet, and what it really is made up of, and I don't care what you're talking about, it's all the little things that build. Mm-hmm. And it's true in your health and your business. It's all those little practices that start, and they're just, call them fundamentals, call them the basics, but it's just building on those and doing those repetitively. And because I hear people come to you all the time and they just want a silver bullet.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the pill I can take that's going to make me healthier, make this issue for me go away? And it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, we had a podcast that just came out, our Rest Eat Move podcast, and we talked about emotions and beliefs around health.
So how can they find your podcast?
We're just on any Spotify.
Spotify.
Yeah,
or-
just anywhere.
and what's it called?
It's called Rest Eat Move.
Rest, Eat, Move?
Yeah.
On Target Living.
Okay.
Yep. So if you just go and type in Rest Eat Move podcast, it'll pop up on anywhere that you carries podcast. But it was really a fun podcast. I listened to it today, working out this morning, and it's all about emotions and beliefs, and we all have them. But I think that's what holds people back. I mean, the first section of my book is your health begins in your mind.
Yeah.
So you got to get the mind right before you get the fundamentals and tactics and
And
all
so
that
your
stuff.
why has to be intrinsic.
Yeah, you got to talk about behavior
It
change.
can't be like, because I want to look better for my husband. Is that extrinsic?
No, that could be
That's intrinsic?
powerful. Yeah.
So give us an example. What would be an extrinsic?
Just anything outside of you.
But name, I don't.
Like you're reading a book,
Mm-hmm.
you work out with a personal trainer, you go see a motivational movie, you go to church and you hear the pastor, that would be extrinsically motivating. Intrinsically now you're taking it internally.
And so you're saying I have to do this because inside of me.
Yeah, but you know, like when people say all the time, I want, like for example, I want John to lose weight.
Yeah.
Well, you want him to lose weight.
I don't want him to lose weight.
No, I'm
He's
not
perfect.
saying that he's perfect, but I'm saying if that's the case,
Yeah.
but if it's not going to work, he's got to want to lose
So
weight.
that's not intrinsic or extrinsic. That's just
That could be just browbeating. Yeah, that's not what you want. But
that never works. You know what the person does? They push back.
for sure.
They
And so
just
that's
push
what
back.
that's what the podcast is
Yeah.
about. Is that people say I've tried everything, I've done this, I can't lose weight or whatever. I don't even go down that path. I'll start asking better questions.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start asking better questions, now you're trying to move them from being threatened to let them go, oh. And that's why I love speaking to large groups, because I can tell stories and they can start connecting the dots, and now the light bulb goes on. And like, versus sometimes when you're face to face, one-on-one, it's kind of threatening. And so when people see in an audience, they're not so threatened about that. So I really love talking about, beliefs and curiosity. And, I was listening to RFK today on a podcast with Rogan, and he was talking about one of the greatest skills of all time is curiosity.
Yeah.
And when
Until
people-
you ask a question,
Yeah,
you
you
don't
gotta-
qualify for the answer.
Again, so when you get in, especially with health, you start getting people to, at least you start planting the seed, and then you start asking the question, because you talk a lot about planting the seed. Then they start really going, okay, maybe I can reverse diabetes? Really? That's possible? And if they ask me the question, then here we go. Versus they'll say,
My doctor says
my
I'm going
doctor
to be on
says-
this medicine
yeah,
forever.
mhm, yeah.
He's
I
the
had-
best doctor
I
in
had I
Michigan.
had a call like that today.
Yeah.
My doctor says I can't. I go, well, wait a minute. What do you want? Well, I don't want to be a type 2 diabetic. Okay, that's where we begin.
Yeah.
And then John just said, what if you did a couple steps at a time? Because that's what really, we're a real believer of building habits one step at a time. So, and they'll say to me, that's all I have to do? I go, yeah, that's all you have to do to start with.
Yeah.
That's it? I'm like, yeah, that's it. And then the next thing you know, like,
Then they leave happy because you didn't
yeah,
overwhelm them.
right. And then
or waterboard
versus, yeah, because back in the day, you got to do this, and this. And now I used to make those mistakes. Versus now, I'm like, oh, let's ask some questions. And if they're willing to build the process, because again, John was asking about the silver bullet. If all of us could go right where we're at today without going through all the mud, would we want to do that? I would tell people absolutely not.
What mud?
The mud, the climb, the pain, the struggles.
You mean if you knew now that it was going to be all that?
No, I'm just saying if people want to climb, they want to get to here now without doing all the journey is everything.
That's it.
God cares about the journey.
Everybody cares about
That's
the
where
journey.
all the changes happen.
And that's the best stuff.
Yeah, that's where you change. I took these people who had never run before, and in 20 weeks, they ran a marathon. And when all of them crossed the finish line, I teared up more than when I crossed, because so much change happened. They were completely different people by the end of it. And then the next day after, they realized it wasn't ever about the race. It was about
And
getting
again,
there, what
you,
they did
you
to
both
get there.
have done that, but if it was that easy, there's not a lot of value to it.
That's
No,
right.
no.
That's right. Because then everybody,
It's the climb, it's the
yeah,
journey. So
you start training those people, and they get together on Saturdays at the house and say, "Oh, we've got to do 4 miles. I've never done 4 miles." And now it's 3 weeks later, and they go, "We've got to go 10 miles today. I don't think I can do." And
then
it
they
keeps
do
going
it,
and
yeah.
going, and every time they break a new barrier, and it changes their thinking, it changes their belief.
Right.
And now and so you get them up to 15, 18 miles, and then you take a slow day where you're only going to do 10, and they act like, "Wow, that's nothing. I can do 10 in a minute," because
Perspective changes.
And
Well,
now-
this is the thing
and
about the fruit of the Spirit. You can't pray it in. You have to grow it.
yeah.
And so it's, perseverance, tenacity, discipline, all those things, they have to be grown in your life. They have to be grown and developed. They can't be prayed in. And the way that you do that is through going through the process. And Chris, don't you think that the more wisdom and the more experience you get, the more comfortable you are with the process with people?
Oh, for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, I always say, because we talk about this in this podcast, it's funny you just said that, but knowledge is one thing. Practicing knowledge is wisdom.
Yes.
And so a lot of people are like, "Oh, I already know that." Okay. Are you doing it? No. Well, okay, that's just knowledge.
Right.
Yeah.
Because when you practice your knowledge, that's wisdom. So that's the key, is how do you get people to practice what they know, what they know.
That's right.
And that's the hard part. I mean,
That's
if it was
Yoda. He said to know and not to do is not to know.
it's not to know, really. So again, part of the journey, part of the struggle is you've gone through that. And, John, I remember back in the day when he was in the summertime, he's in the factory, schlepping paint. Well, I got to tell you, if you don't know that, you don't really understand the whole business.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you have to go through some of that stuff.
You had to do all those things to build to where,
Correct.
and it's all part of the journey.
And if
But
you would- if
now
you
you
would-
can lean on that. 'cause
Yeah, if you would have just jumped to where you're at today, it's not the same. And then
No.
you have the respect that people, I've been there, done that. I'm not afraid of that. So I think that's what I've learned over the years. Like, I've been there, done that, tried it. So that creates lots of confidence. I've been on big stages. People ask me all sorts of crazy questions, and you're like, "Oh, I've done that before." Last week, I was doing an event, and none of the AV stuff worked.
What'd you do?
I just pivoted and winged it. And they were like, "Oh my gosh, how did you do that?" I'm like, "Oh, I've done it 9,000 times." So, but at the time, if you don't go through that struggles and that pain, and it's happened to me before.
Yeah.
So you've been there. So that helps a lot.
And so once you develop those things in the hard times, they can never be taken from you because they become like part of your soul. And once you have them, you have them. It can't be taken. It can't be stolen. It's yours.
Well, we kid about this because when you speak, you command a nice number, and people think that that's an overnight success. And when I go back and think of all the talks you gave for free, all the things that you did to build to where you got better and better and could command. It's a journey.
It's interesting sometimes when people will call me and, they want to get into speaking, and they say, "Well, do you want to get into speaking and I get paid for 5 years?" And they'll say, "What?" I'm like, "No, I'm just teasing you, but kinda."
Yeah.
So you have to, whatever craft of a profession, you have to, but that's the love. I'm not doing it just because I'm getting paid. I'm like, I really love this, and people know that. They know that it comes shining through that. Whatever you're doing, if you have a passion for it, people they can feel that you're trying to genuinely help them.
So I'll talk to young people, and they'll sit and they'll talk about what they want to do, and you can tell right away when they're picking a job because they think that job makes a lot of money, rather than pick their passion. Because if they truly pick their passion, and the money will come. Pick your passion. Don't pick jobs because you think, "I want to be an attorney because I think they make a lot of money. I want to be a doctor because I think they make a lot of money."
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way real well.
Well,
I was talking to one guy, and he loves biking, loves it. And I said, "Why don't you open a bike shop?" And he said, "Well, then it won't be fun anymore."
But you hear that with a lot of golf pros sometimes. They don't even play golf anymore. So John's right. You got to find what drives you, and then you can get really creative. In our world today, there's so many different ways.
Oh, so many.
I mean, there's
like
so
if
many
you're
different-
broke now, there's no excuse.
Yeah, I mean, you can constantly and if you put the effort into it and you keep working and one step at a time, when I first got in this business, I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work. But then I always thought this too. I'm going to burn the boats.
Yeah.
I'm not going back.
No looking back.
Nope. I'm going in 100%.
So is that part of your risk-taking strategy? Don't go in 100% committed?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you're going to have regrets. If I woulda, coulda, shoulda, whatever.
What if I wouldn't have quit?
Yeah. And I was looking at, Lucas Glover just won two weeks in a row on the PGA Golf Tour. Hasn't won in 10 years. Was quitting golf.
Oh,
And he just won the last 2 in a row.
that's cool.
And it's just really, those are really great stories, and there's a jillion of them out there. But that to me is like, I'm going to go in 100%. If it doesn't work, I always feel that I can do something. I'm not worried about working. I'll work. But I think that's the challenge. I think more and more people, they just settle. I could have settled for
Butternut.
not Butternut, but I could have settled at General Motors, which would have been a great career.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I wasn't passionate about it. And
So it would have been a grind.
Yeah, I mean, and I remember my father was really good about that. He knew I was kind of like a little different, like not going to follow the path of money because it wasn't driving me. And then he'd always coach me and say, hey, find something you love to do.
That's nice.
That's right. That's right. It's really important, I think, because if you have passion for it, somehow the money finds you.
It does.
It really does. That's not what you worry about.
Well,
And I
because
think
it's because you're solving a problem. And the bigger problem you solve, the more money you make.
That's
Yeah,
right.
And
and
health issues are a big problem.
And I
today.
think, when you're looking at different ways to make a career, I think that's where people get sideways sometimes. They just, you go to college, and I was this person, where do I need to go? I need to go in business, okay? So, it wasn't like I didn't like it, but as time went on. But again, I think the other thing you mentioned earlier, no matter where you are, look around, you can always learn something. I spent 8 years in the grocery store. I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing here? But I know everything about a grocery store. They're all set up the same way. Red and blue are the 2 driver colors. Frito-Lay, all your best sellers are on one end, the other best sellers on the other end. At the time I'm like, do I really need, but now it's funny. I can share stories with it in the audience, and they're like, how in the hell do you know that? I'm like, well, I spent 8 years in the grocery store.
Yeah.
So those are little things over time, but when you're
Then
really,
you don't see, like, how is God going to use this?
yeah, when you pay
And
attention.
then when you look back, you can see how all the things led you.
Yes.
And it all makes sense.
Yes. And when I do that more as time goes on. I'm trying to be a little bit more aware and curious and listen and learn. And so, anyway, those are things that I think that.
So let's pivot to health for a minute, because I think this is a great spot when you talk about you need to be curious and you need to
Your phone.
ask the right questions, right?
Yep.
Any
So-
health questions? Put your health questions in the comments.
So I think a lot of people hear whatever their diagnosis is, whatever their issue is, whatever their problem is, that this is what I've got, this is my lot in life, and if I get this pill, that's going to solve it. And they never ask the next question, or maybe the correct question, which is the why. Why is this happening?
Right.
So why don't you talk for a minute about that?
Yeah. So you pick anything. If you have high blood pressure, why do I have high blood pressure?
Well, I'll just take medication to
Yeah,
solve
you can
it.
take the medication, but all these medications are leechers. They're drug muggers. Susie Cohen has a great book called Drug Muggers, and any type of medication, you're gonna, whether it's a calcium channel blocker, angiotensin drug, or whatever it might be for blood pressure, you're gonna leach something else out, which leads to another problem.
Right.
And so if a person has high blood pressure, the fastest way to improve that is changing how you breathe. Because what it's doing is balance the nervous system. When the nervous system gets back in balance, your blood pressure comes down. So that's where people just, number one, they don't know. And number two, you're not going to see it advertised on nightly TV because there's no money in it. Hey, this is going to work on your breathing. You mean breathe through the nose, slow it down, and do a diaphragmatic breathing? So that's the stuff I get every day. I had a call 3 hours ago. Doctor wants to put this guy in a cholesterol med. He's on a new, he's 57 years old. He's very interested in his health, blah, blah, blah. And I'm saying, you don't need to be on a, cholesterol medication. You need to understand what your risk is. So we started asking better questions. What's your homocysteine? What are your ratios? What this and that? And he gets off the phone. He goes, I have no risk, do I? I go, you have no risk. In fact, I'm giving you a little gold star. And he just says, why is this? I go, because in the medical world many times, number one, many times they're not trained, but many of them are, but they don't have a lot of time. You got a 12-minute office visit for your primary care doc. It's cost $230. And if you had to pay $230, you'd probably expect a lot. Would you agree?
Right.
But you need to go in and get in the game. Because if you're not in the game, you're going to walk away with blood pressure medications or whatever it might be.
Right.
So the challenge people have to understand is when you have an issue, you always got to ask the question about what's the source. You know, I had a guy that had hiccups, believe it or not, for 2.5 years in Miami.
Oh my goodness.
And
What caused it?
well, I'm going to tell you. So his wife calls me up, seen me speak at a conference. We did a webinar, prompted her, calls me up. My husband has hiccups for 2.5 years. I'm like, come on, that can't be true. He's on a schizophrenic medication because he can't sleep anymore. He's on Ambien for sleep. He's on a muscle relaxer. He's on an acid blocker. I mean, you name it, he's on it.
And none of it's working.
58 years old.
Oh.
So I said to him, number one, has anybody talked to you about your diaphragm? No. Well, hiccups are a spasming of the diaphragm. Number one is a red flag. Number two, tell me about your diet. Well, I'm on a high protein diet, eat protein bars. I don't eat, so next thing you know, I said, what kind of carbohydrates you eat for your gut health, whatever. Hasn't eaten a fruit in 6 years.
Oh, no.
No carbohydrates, 2 pots of coffee, 2 glasses of wine, a train wreck. So I had to talk him off the ledge, and we started adding potatoes and vegetables and fruits and this and that, slow down on his coffee. And within 6 weeks, hiccups started getting better. Within 6 months, he had no more hiccups.
6 months it took though, huh?
Took to completely clean him up. I mean, he was a lot of meds.
Yeah.
So we had to, and now
Is
he's
he off all the meds now?
off all the meds. Yeah.
That's amazing.
It was amazing, but it took a while, and it took him.
That's the thing. Medicine's a show off.
Well,
It might give you results, but it's causing all these other
and
problems.
he'd seen so many doctors around, and it was just sad because nobody was asking him the right questions.
But your way might take a little longer because it's not a show off, but in the long run, it is a show off because you're getting your health back.
Well, you're just addressing what you're doing is you're putting a Band-Aid on it. You're
Like
not getting
medicine?
you're not getting to the core of the issue. You just Band-Aided the problem.
Well, you're band-aiding it and then you're cutting the person in
Well,
a
I
bunch
think
of
the
other
other thing
places.
too, to
because
make
of
this
side
really
effects.
clear for your audience,
Yeah.
that medications can fit into a short term, and they can be very effective.
Yeah.
And some people, that's what you need right now.
Right.
But many are lifestyle medications. This is a lifestyle medication. So it
So
got
lifestyle medication, it means that if you change your lifestyle, you don't need it?
probably don't need it.
Okay.
And so most of our medications today are lifestyle medications. But as John mentioned, people are, and again, doctors challenge, are they really going to do what they should be doing?
Yeah.
And most people they want that magic pill. So I can just use my dad back in the day. If he had XYZ, he doesn't want to do the work, he wants the pill. So not everybody. So that would be the question, because I always talk about, like, remember Let's Make a Deal? Monty Hall had the 3 doors. That's what I would do if I'm a primary care doc. You got door number 1, 2, and 3. Which one do you want to go in? This one you don't have to change anything. This one you're going to have to start changing your lifestyle.
Okay.
You get
that's
to
good.
choose, right? So that's the challenge in our medical world, that you got a 12-minute visit. Is John, Judy, or Chris going to change their lifestyle? And many times you don't know. So you have to try to protect
So you
them.
can't treat everyone the same when they come in and just throw drugs at them because some people...
No, like the guy today, he didn't want to be on a stat med, very motivated, this and that. You got to look at what's behind the wheel here. Like, okay, what's the problem? So that's the challenge, and now it's an art. It's not just, it's not just the science. Health and medicine is definitely an art. There's no cut and dry. When I hear John Hopkins
it's a
said
practice.
this, or Cleveland Clinic said this, wait a minute, the proof's in the pudding. If you can get people to reverse diabetes and you've seen it and you know exactly how to do it, don't tell me you can't do it.
So we have a friend that was diagnosed with diabetes, right? Type 2, I think, right?
Type 2, most of it's type 2.
And this was his lot in life. That's what he was told. You're going to be on medication. You're going to be on insulin. You're going to do this, and this is it.
Yep.
And it finally got him to the point where it shook him, right? And he came to you, and told you that was his lot in life, right?
Yeah, he didn't want it to be his lot in life, though.
Right.
But that's what he was told.
Right. So, was it a year later?
Yeah, he lost 58 pounds, and his A1C is completely back to normal.
And he's
58 pounds lighter. And he looked 10 years younger when I saw him. I hardly recognized him.
So here's what I found fascinating. So after all that, he's off all of his medications. He's told he's going to be on insulin for the rest of his life.
Mm-hmm.
He goes back and sees his doctor, and his doctor never says, how'd you do it? What'd you do? They just kind of shrug their shoulders and move on, and it's a little bothersome to say, if I'm a doctor, I'd say, okay, how did you do that? Because I've got all these other people
Right.
that are on,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
might
yeah.
want to
You
make
think
that
he'd be
choice.
curious.
Right,
Yeah.
that they're curious enough. And so it gets back to that in general in life. When you see something, you got to be curious to ask
That's
the question, right?
Don't be
No matter what it is.
critical. Be curious.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the big thing is we all have to understand that nobody's going to take better care of your health than you.
Yeah.
And then so that's number one. You have to get in the game. And it's not fair to your healthcare practitioner to take care of. You got to get in the game. Number one. So that's the thing I always tell audiences. You got to get in the game. It's not fair. You know, you can't come in with broken sleep, high blood pressure, cholesterol issues, and think they're going to fix you in a 12-minute visit. Not going to happen.
No,
So
they're just going to give you a bunch of drugs.
yeah. So you have to get in the game. Number one. Number two, you have to create. You don't have to cross these bridges alone. You need to create a system. You know, I have so many clients come to see me, and they're like, "All right, I want you to go see this physical therapist. I want you to see this massage therapist. I
So
want
you
to
have a toolbox.
yeah." And they'll say to me all the time, "Why do I need to go them?" I said, "I'm not the expert in
Yeah.
spinal reconstruction. You know, I'll help you and I'll guide you, but you need to go see these people, and you can't be an expert in everything." So to me, I'm always surrounding myself. I have some amazing trainers that I send people
Yeah, you
to.
don't have to know everything.
No.
But if you know someone who knows what you don't know, it's always great.
Or you guys talk a lot about abundance. I'm never into the scarcity mentality. Like, you mean you're going to send people to?
Right.
Of course I am.
Yeah.
Because they know I'm trying to help them, and not just hoarding my clients. So so there's a lot to that thought process, abundance and sharing and.
Well, it's actually a seed that you're sowing, and it always comes back bigger.
But I think back what John was saying too. You have to have that conversation initially and find out what their beliefs are. Are their box of beliefs nailed shut, or are they maybe here to? And then now you start adding, because when you get emotion, whether it's finances or health or whatever, you got to get the emotion part of it. The stronger the emotion becomes, that's their why. The more change you're going to see. And so if I don't tap into their emotion and their why, they're not going to change. But if I really tap into it, like, hey, tell me about your grandkids. Tell me about your, because people are needed. Sometimes they're not being taught, like, I am needed. Okay. I mean, one of the things I've learned over the years with my wife, I tell her all the time I love her, but the more I tell her I need her, that's a much more powerful emotion.
That's good.
And so the more I say to her, there's so many wonderful things you do, and that's what gets her going.
Yeah.
And so it's not like, oh, I love you, whatever. No, that hopefully she knows that, but at the same time, but I didn't do that for a long time in my married life.
It's a learned thing.
It's a learned thing. I've learned a few things along the way, but I think that's the same thing I tell people whether it's an audience or is I tell them how much they're needed, because when they start realizing how much they are needed, then they might want to say, you know what, now my why is outside of me. And anytime the why gets outside of you, amazing transformation can take place. And that's what we saw with our.
So that's extrinsic?
That would be an intrinsic. Once it gets out, now they're motivated. Like I had a woman in Cincinnati lost 200 pounds at 65 years old. That's impossible, right?
Right.
Went from 16 meds to 3 meds. Can you imagine starting that journey of weight loss of 200 pounds at 65?
That's a lot of weight.
That's a lot.
But she was driven
That would be very discouraging.
She was driven by her husband because she wanted to ride motorcycles again for him, because that's what his love was. So now she's dry. Every time she's stuck in the mud, it's too hard, it's this and that. She kept thinking about her husband's love for motorcycles.
Oh, that's nice.
It's powerful.
I think that all of us, whether it's any part of your life, you can't just leave it to someone else and take your hands off the wheel.
No.
If it's your health, you've got to have your hands on the steering wheel. You got to be part of it. If it's your finances, you got to have your hands. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm giving it to this guy," and you hear about these bad stories where people lose their money or somebody takes advantage of them. You got to have your hands on the steering wheel.
Yeah.
On all these little areas, and it doesn't mean you have to be the expert.
Right.
But you got to be curious enough to find the experts and learn about it, and don't take your hands off the steering wheel.
Well, and I think you said earlier too, because I mean, you're really good at this, but sometimes I'll just bounce ideas off of, hey, John, what do you think of this? Because you don't have to always solve all these things by yourself.
Right.
So you have to see these people in your circle and say, hey, what do you think about this or that or whatever? And then you get in a nice dialogue. And now it's like, okay, I don't know it all because I don't know hardly anything. So I just want to make sure that I surround myself with the people that are much smarter than me.
Right.
Which is not hard.
So one of our passions is we ski. We like to snow ski. We ski. Well, I think we've done it.
Passion.
What, 30 years in a row? Something like that. Long time.
Probably longer.
So we take
How
a
old are
ski
you?
trip. I'm younger than you.
Much longer. We say 30 years. It's more like 50
Yeah,
years.
probably. But a number of years ago, you were writing your first book, and you were struggling with it, and we were skiing, and we got stuck up in the mountains, a really bad snowstorm, so we went in to try to ride it out a little bit, and we get into this long conversation, and you were talking about that, and
Yeah, I remember that.
I said, you got to get a mentor. You got to get somebody that's
Yeah,
done.
it was in Vail, Colorado.
Right.
Remember
We were
that?
stuck up in this mountain, and so we came up with this plan, and you said, well, yeah, and we knew the guy. We knew the guy.
Yep.
Well, how am I going to do this, and how am I going to ask him? And so we were stuck up there, and so we came up with this little plan of what you were going to do. You're going to go talk to him. You're going to do this. See if he would help you with this book, and give you the. And we were up there for a while, and we took care of it. Now it's 2 days later. I'm riding home, and I feel like the Holy Spirit speaks to me and goes, "Hey, dummy, that's for you too. You need a mentor. You need a business mentor." And the minute it came to me, I knew, I was so busy giving advice that I wasn't taking it. I wasn't listening. And that was the start of me reaching out to my business mentor. And I was nervous to do it. And I kind of used the same framework that we came up with. And I did the same thing. And so it's amazing when you get together. And if you want to be curious and you want to ask each other and you want to take an idea and build on it.
Wait a minute. Isn't that how you started your group with the four
That was
friends?
that was down the road.
They call themselves the Goal Guys, and how often would you meet? Once a month?
Once a quarter. Mm-hmm. So we had goals that we shared with each other at the beginning of the year. And number one, if you have goals, write them down. They become much more powerful when you write your goals down. Huge. Number two, if you really want to supercharge it, share them with somebody, because now it's real. Now that it's not just in the back of your mind. Now it's real. Somebody else knows. So we had four of us, and we sat down at the beginning of the year, and we shared our goals. And then we got together on a quarterly basis and said, how are we doing? And it was, there was a lot of camaraderie in that. And all the guards were down because we truly wanted to help each other.
Right.
Yeah.
So if somebody wasn't getting there, you'd say, well, why not this? And why not that? And what if you tried this? And it was powerful. It was very powerful because you were sharing your goals, you were helping each other with them, and you were accountable. And that accountability thing
That's
is
a big
tough.
deal, isn't it?
That is tough.
You don't want to disappoint somebody.
You don't want to show up and not have done anything.
Well, and we were afraid of Al.
And then we had our fourth guy was quite a bit older than we were, and he was fantastic.
He was wonderful.
So yeah, I have a health question.
Let me tell you one quick story about
sure.
Al. So
Al was his mentor.
Yeah, Al was, and John and I, that's how so Al and I was a guy I trained, and he was a accountant professor at Michigan State University, wrote books. The guy was just amazing.
Yeah.
And he didn't have a lot of filter.
He had no bedside manner. You had to know him because he truly loved you, but he had no bedside manner.
Yeah, I loved this guy, and he would never. So one day, I was talking about writing the book. So now I'm in, and he was asking me, because I would meet with him privately, like once a month. How's the book going? Well, I got two kids at home, and I got this and that. Dog ate my homework, all that stuff.
Right.
So he takes two. I still remember this like it was yesterday. He takes 2 pennies and sets them on the table, and he looks at me and he goes, "Let me just tell you a quick story. 98% of the people start writing a book never complete it. Only 2%. Are you gonna be the 2% or are you gonna be 98%?"
I'm a finisher.
And I'm like, "Oh no."
Yeah, right.
I can't go back and have this meeting with him
No,
again.
Yeah.
you can't.
So that was it right there. He goes, so I said, okay, tell me how I need to do it. He said, you need to carve out time. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Now we get into strategy and tactics and away we went.
What a great mentor.
Oh,
Because
he's awesome.
that's
He
what
was
a great
amazing.
mentor does.
Oh.
They spank you when you
Oh,
need it.
they spank you.
They encourage you when
Right.
you need it, and they know how to
And he was,
and they
and
make
he
you
was
accountable.
he was the guy, just throw this out there, and he was the guy that was instrumental in my food target. And so we were talking one day, and back to the mentor, and he said, I think you need to have something like a stop stoplight. So that's how that began.
And
So
that's like the foundation of your company.
that's the name of our company,
Yeah.
On Target Living. Yeah. But it was based on this mentor
So
that John and I
he
started.
became part of your story by mentoring you. He's part of your story.
Oh, always will be.
Right.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Right.
Yeah. But it started with John and I talking. We had, what was this, like a snowstorm, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were snowed in at the top.
Yeah,
it
and then we
was-
just started talking, and it just kept going and going and going. And finally, I was talking to John. I'm like, God, I'm stuck here in my life, and because everybody said that if you're going to go speak, you have to have a book, and I didn't have a book.
And I share the story. So at that same time, I reached out to this guy that was, way above me on a pedestal in our industry, and I didn't know if he would do it, but he agreed to do it, and I was taken back. But I had like my second quarterly meeting with him, and we agreed to do 6 things for that quarter, and I was so excited to talk to him because I had accomplished 5 of them. And those 5 things would be hard to do in a year, let alone. And I was so proud of myself. And I get done listing the 5 and how great it was, and on and on. And all he wants to do is talk about the 6th thing that I didn't finish. And all I want to say is, well, yeah, but I got these 5 done. And he says, yeah, but that's not what we agreed to. We agreed to 6. And by the time we were done, I was so politely slapped around.
He spanked you.
Right. I thought, I'm never getting on this phone again if I don't have exactly done what we agreed to.
What you agreed to.
Because that was accountability.
Yeah.
And, we love to say the line, your friends love you the way you are. Your mentor loves you too much to leave you that way. And that's what they were doing.
Right.
They were making us accountable.
Right.
And, saw better things in us.
And again, it's
And then now they're part of your story.
Yeah, and your
Chris is part of our story.
Yeah, and your mentor was he wanted the best of you, and you knew that.
Right.
And so it wasn't like, oh, just beating you up. He
No,
just
no,
wants
no.
the best of you.
No, they're coaching, and they truly want you. They truly do want you to be better. That's if you've got the right mentor,
Right.
And you've got that. And quite frankly, if you're going to keep the right mentor, you need to know what it needs to be a good protege. Meaning, you've got to be held accountable. You've got to show them your weaknesses. You've got to let them remove your weaknesses so they know what they are.
That's what my new book is about. Mine and John's new book, and we just finished it today. It's going to be out real soon.
It's tough.
But I remember you talking a lot about that, and I don't think we talk enough about that to be a good mentee.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, I look at it right now, like if I'm going to be mentored, I'm going to be a good mentee.
That's right.
So I think that's really a good point that you make.
I'm not going to waste somebody's time. I'm going to be serious about what we do. I'm going to hold them to,
Yeah.
There's a protocol in
That's right.
mentorship, and if you break protocol, usually your mentor is way levels above you, and they're busy and they're successful. They don't have time to play, and so if you break protocol, you're going to lose them.
You see it all the time. You see it in the movies all the time. You got the Karate Kid, right? He doesn't want to put wax on this guy's car. He doesn't want to paint the fence anymore, but he doesn't know what the mentor knows. And the mentor knows, I'm training you.
Right.
And I love that movie, Hitch.
Right.
He says, he goes out on the first date, and he says, no, it's not about the girl. It's about the girl's girlfriend. Because if you get in with the girl's girlfriend, then you're going to be in. And he coaches him through all that. If you don't know that, that's why you have a mentor, because they see things that you don't see.
Right.
They've been places you've never been, and they're going to coach you through it. But you've got to be open to it.
Right.
You've got to be accountable to it. And you got to just trust that they know
Yeah,
things you don't know.
we all have those blind spots, that's for sure.
Right,
Yeah, we do.
right. So there's,
And we all have mentors.
yes.
We don't just mentor people, we have mentors too, because there's always a hand up, right?
Yes. You need to be reaching down,
Yeah.
and you need to be reaching up.
That's
You need to
right.
be pulling people up, and you need to be reaching up yourself. And it all gets back to that curiosity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you get to a spot and you say, I'm not curious anymore,
Or I don't need anyone to tell me what to do. Then you lose your perspective real quick.
my dad was my dad's still alive, he's 93. At 89, he had a friend, my mom died, he had a good friend, and they started to go to classes at MSU, Michigan State University, and they took some class. They're both 89 years old. It was what was it?
I don't remember, political something.
It was political science, some type of class like
Yeah.
that. And it was once a week, and so they'd go out there. And I felt so bad for the teacher because whoever it was had to deal with those two because they were a pair. But I love the fact that he's 89 and he's still curious enough to do that.
But I guarantee that in the class was motivated by this.
Yeah.
To see those guys in the class.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. That's a shiny penny probably for the teacher.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
I have a health question for you.
Okay.
What are Chris's suggestions for women post-menopause to boost their metabolism and want to do it naturally, not through hormone replacement?
Well, the first thing people, again, especially for women, is they need omega-3 fats and omega-6 fats.
Which is?
So that's the cod liver oil, that's the flax, that's the chia, that's the omega-3s, walnuts. And what's missing for many people's diet is healthy omega-6 fats. So we consume way too much corn oil and soybean oil. That's crummy omega-6 fats. But hemp seeds, Brazil nuts, pumpkin seeds, those are, so now you're balancing the omega-3 and omega-6 because that's the raw material that makes the hormones. And then number two is you need to understand the power of rest, because rest is really powerful, because if your cortisol levels are high, your building and sex hormones will be out of balance. And the last piece is, if you're over 50, I tell everybody you need to strength train. Strength training is your metabolic driver.
The fountain of youth.
It's the fountain of youth, yeah. So if you can get the omega-3 fats down, pay attention to people's sleep and the rest, pace and space of their life, and then strength training, that's kind of the way to drive your metabolism.
So a lot of times Judy will tell somebody that, some woman, she goes, well, I don't want to get big. I'm thinking, I spent my whole life weightlifting. I've never gotten big in my whole life.
You know, I've competed in 10 bodybuilding contests, and I always people would go, how come you're not bigger? And then I remember one time I'm at the Mac and I'm getting dressed, and the guy says, how long have you been lifting weights? And I said, well, since I was probably 14, 15. He goes, I thought you'd be bigger than this. So when I hear
It's
that,
really
from
hard
women,
to build muscle, and
Oh,
you never
geez.
want to lose it. It's hard, it's
But it's-
metabolically active tissue.
But it is. So your muscle itself has mitochondria, and mitochondria is your metabolism. And the more you stimulate the mitochondria, the more, car engine is powerful. So that's really, as we age, we want to move better, have better metabolism. Strength training's got to be.
And plus, your muscles are a pulley system, and the bone is
Oh,
the
yeah.
middle, and so they're pulling on both sides of the bone, and they keep you from getting osteoporosis.
Yeah, you got to have healthy bones.
Yeah.
You got to do some strength training. So that's a
Yeah.
big part of metabolism, and especially for men and women.
So I have another question. Does Chris have an exercise regimen that he recommends to bust abdominal fat for postmenopausal age women that is made of traditional exercise, not yoga?
Yeah, so number one, you can never out-exercise a bad diet. So when I'm trying to get rid, I show a picture of me, here and there, 4 months apart. This one, I'm kind of sloppy, getting ready for a contest, and this one over here, I'm chiseled. And people say, well, what workout did you do over there? I said, the same workout I did over here.
That's right.
So once you start doing a regular core, you're working good posture, you have these muscles. It's just a matter of, can you see them? And that comes from the diet. So there's lots of ways to train your core. We have tons of videos on our YouTube, onto our Living YouTube. I mean, it goes on and on, whether it's floor stuff, body weight, medicine ball, Swiss ball. There are lots of ways to train your core. But the bottom line is, it's all about the food.
It's just eating the right kind of fat,
Eating the right kind of food.
eliminating processed food.
Just keep cleaning up the diet, but the diet is everything.
Okay, Chris, give us your top 5 health tips.
Hey, hang on, before you do that, what I think is really interesting there is you can't get a good look at it through this,
It's
but
on your
there-
website, isn't it?
but
Yeah,
this is on the website.
those are all
It's on
free.
his website.
What the idea of the target is this is the outside. This is the worst. This is the junk food. This is this. And the idea is start working your way to the inside. You don't have to jump right to the middle. You don't have to be
Well, and the other
a
thing
workout.
too, like
you
at the beginning of the year, we do a 21-day eat challenge. In the 21-day eat challenge, you live in the center of the target for 21 days. And people are like,
That's the challenge?
yeah. Now, it's, again, we don't really, it's just jumpstart. People start being aware that there's a lot of stuff that they eat that is not in that target. So it's not about being perfect because the target's forgiving, but for 21 days, you live in the center of the target. And what you do for people, they start recognizing, oh, I can make that better, I can make that better. So now it's the awareness, and now
Then they recognize I'm feeling better.
you're feeling better, and they've lost some weight, and they're getting leaner, and all the stuff that goes with it. And we all, as everybody goes up and down. There's nobody that just goes up and gets,
Yeah.
I mean, we just heard all that disaster with Liver King. It just, came out with like he doesn't do drugs, and the list goes on. So, but there's a lot of easy ways to start improving your health. The target is on the website. You can send it to people. It's free.
And then a lot of the food we're talking about is on the website.
Correct.
A lot of the right kind of food to eat. It's a great website to go to if you're challenged with your health, and they can reach out and talk to you.
Yeah.
If you have any health questions, you got to type them because we're almost done.
But they can reach out to.
They can reach out to ontarliving.com. We have a podcast. We're very accessible.
Right.
Yeah, we're happy to help you.
Right. It's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, how.
Is strength training for women also? Somebody wants to know.
Well, again, you get into specificity, but you try to find out what they enjoy to do. But there's lots of ways of strength training. You can do body weight machines, dumbbells, kettlebells, bands. It doesn't matter. But strength training is strength training.
I love it.
And when I work with men and women, once you start building the foundation, fundamentals, then you let them learn how to play. Like John, when John and I trained together for a long time, I mean, I watched John in the gym, and I started laughing last winter when we went to Aspen skiing, and John's in the gym, and I was kind of one of our buddies that goes with us. He's a heart surgeon in South Bend, and this guy's a phenomenal guy, but he wanted to learn more about strength training. And I just pointed over, see John's posture over there? See how good his form looks?
Amazing.
That's what we're going to do. So it really gets back to basics and
You're the gold
the
standard.
posture
No, I'm
and
not,
all the stuff
but-
that comes with that. And then, you're trying to create injury-free and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So really,
You had me doing last week this just flexed arm hang for 1
we
minute.
just hang. I know you're super competitive.
I was like, oh,
I was
please,
just
I got
asking Judy
this.
because most people can't hang for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And you wanted to make sure that you could do it for a minute, show off your muscles. So, and you did.
They're not just for show, really they are.
You did crush it though.
I'm not very strong. As soon as John asked me to help him lift furniture or something, for some reason,
You just can't. You have.
I
you're
laugh
busy. You're
really
busy.
hard and then I get all weak and I can't help him. So my muscles really are just for show. Somebody wants to know, how can you strengthen your core if you've had issues with your L4 and 5 torn?
Well, the first thing is you start looking at, like when you look at the core muscles themselves, when you're looking at posture, whether it's your, S1, L4, L5, which is really for people's back, that's a challenge. But the first thing you want to do is you want to create some really basic things. So like we do wall extensions and stuff that are super safe, and then you can get on the floor, so you can do lots of stuff around the core that doesn't really put anybody in jeopardy versus like doing, one of the worst things you can do is a plank. Because if the plank,
Oh yeah, because your lower back sags.
I see so many people doing planks. I'm like, I don't know. A push-up, you know how to do a perfect push-up, you never have to do a plank. So before you do that, we really work on alignment and posture, which works your core, and that's kind of, and then we
And
give
a lot of times your glutes help